the reason I was asked here today is because I founded a very cool company called youcaring.com. And like Barry said, we have fundraising for things like medical expenses, adoptions, nonprofits, tuition, and quite a number of other things. A funny one I think is awesome, we didn't expect it, was pet expenses as well, that we help people raise money for. So pet adoptions and surgeries and rescues. And it's done amazing. It's the 4th largest crowdfunding website in the internet. We've helped over 100,000 fundraisers raise about $120 million, which is astronomical, way bigger than I ever thought it would be. But as good as YouCaring is, it's actually a very small part of why I count myself successful. And actually, I want to break success into 2 definitions. The first I would like to call personal success, which for me is continual discovery and motion into who we are as individuals. So both discovery and motion toward what we're discovering. And the second I would call public success, which is things like having a great company, changing the world, making a lot of money, writing a bestseller like Elizabeth Gilbert, or top 5 album, things, public success. And I think these two can be connected, but one of them is much more important, at least to me. So I want to tell you 2 stories which illustrate this in my life. The first started about 4 years ago. I was going to a Bible school up in Northern California, and actually I have no formal education, just did a couple years of this non-accredited school, and I was running out of money. It was two months into the year, and there were 1,000 other students looking for the same type of job with the same hours, and there was just nothing else available. So I needed to figure out something, and eventually a friend called me and said, "Luke, I think you could start a Christmas tree business. You can buy the trees in Oregon for $7 to $11 and sell them in California for about $50 to $100. The funny thing is, I actually had never even thought about starting a business for myself. It was a pretty scary thing, and I didn't really believe I had what it took to start a business and do something that would succeed. But I was so desperate, and I ended up talking to a friend who had done some businesses before, and we decided to become partners and start our venture. So my first venture started at 19, and it was the beginning of November, but when we decided we were going to start, and Christmas tree sales start about 3 weeks later, right after Thanksgiving. So we had to move fast. So we found a way to borrow about $6,000 between our parents and a couple other people, and we bought 200 Christmas trees and rented a couple Christmas tree lots. We got insurance for our little startup, and we got a business license, and we thought we were pretty good with that. And then we went up to Oregon for Thanksgiving with my family, picked up our 200 trees, loaded them on a flatbed trailer, a 45-foot flatbed trailer, and drove them down all night Thanksgiving night to Redding. So it was about a 6-hour drive. We got there at 5 in the morning. And at 8 o'clock, we started work. We were already exhausted. And it was at that point that the glittery excitement of starting a business kind of went away, because I realized that I actually had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know anything about running a Christmas tree business. We hadn't marketed at all. We finally found some girls who would paint us a couple of signs. So that was really nice of them. And we hadn't planned for things like taking credit cards. We didn't have any way to do that, so we could only take cash or check. Sales tax. Oh yeah, dang, we got to charge sales tax. And we also didn't have a clever way to stand our Christmas trees up so that they wouldn't keep falling over. So whenever the wind blew, our Christmas trees would just fall over. And we'd come in the morning, and we have to set them all up. And during the day, if the wind blew too hard, it just fell over. and many, many other things. Actually, one of the probably the funniest ones was we didn't have a fence around our lot, and because of that, anyone could just really walk by at any time and take our trees. In fact, I got into a little debate with one of the guys who came to buy a tree, and he was trying to buy this tree for $15 that we were trying to sell for $25. And I was like, no, it's $25. And he's like, I will come back tonight and steal it, or you could sell it to me for $15. I'm like, okay, I'll take your $15. And it was very, very cold, probably the coldest winter I had experienced in Reading, and I didn't have winter clothes, so I'd meet customers and could barely get their change out of because I was so shivering. So we got this going, and the first week we only sold 5 Christmas trees, which we had about 4 or 5 weeks to sell. We had 200 Christmas trees, and so the math was just not working out. At that rate, we would sell about 25 trees, which was not going to work. And I was really scared and extremely stressed. So then something changed. I picked up a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Have any of you ever heard about it or read it? Okay, well, it's great. I would recommend it highly. And it's the story of Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author's experience with his rich dad and his poor dad. So his rich dad is his best friend's real dad, and his poor dad is his own personal dad. So his poor dad was one of the most highly distinguished educators in Hawaii, and after seeking promotion, at the end of his life, he really only left debt to his family. Now, he left an amazing heritage in education and instilling good values in his kids, but he ended up leaving debt to his family. And his rich dad, who was his best friend's real dad, ended up not even completing college, and working on his own businesses his whole time. He basically became a full-time businessman working for himself, and ended up leaving millions of dollars to his family. And I found myself identifying with this rich dad who had started businesses, and even though I didn't really believe I had what it takes, and my business was obviously failing, I kind of fell in love with business. It created this perfect storm where something so chaotic also created space for me to discover something I loved. And that's that definition of personal success, that continual discovery. I was discovering something about myself that I would have never had the opportunity to realize otherwise. And I started moving toward that. So back to the Christmas trees. Actually, by week 3, we started selling quite a bit more. And 2 days before Christmas, on December 23rd, we sold our last Christmas tree. Yay! Another unfortunate part about it, though, is even though we sold all our trees, we hadn't really planned almost anything very well, and a bunch of expenses came up, so our sales total came to $80 short of the initial investment. Very unfortunate, which made my hourly rate, I worked about 300 hours on the project, about negative 13 cents an hour. Put another way, I paid the universe 13 cents an hour for a business education. A little bit less expensive than a Stanford degree, which I hope to do someday. So if I take all of those experiences, that experience with the Christmas tree business, it was definitely a public failure. We didn't make money, we didn't create an amazing business, we didn't change the world, but on the other hand, I learned something about myself that was so precious. And the discovery that I loved business has paid me more than I think any successful Christmas tree business ever could have. So the second story starts right after that. And basically after that, I had this really ravenous passion for learning about business. So I started going to every business person, successful or not, that I could find, and asking them any questions I could. So why they succeeded or why they failed, how they started, what were their best tips for a young entrepreneur, and many, many other questions. I probably asked at least a couple guys, asked them hundreds and hundreds of questions, and probably was really annoying. In fact, annoying to the point that one of the guys came to me, a guy named Brock Ketcher, came to me and said, "Hey, Luke, I don't want to answer your questions about business anymore, but why don't we just start one together?" So fast forward 1 year, and you're missing a lot of process here, but fast forward 1 year, and that business turned into youcaring.com, the business that Barry mentioned and I told you about right at the beginning. And it was actually pretty exciting. We had 1 year, just 1 year after the idea, we already had hundreds of fundraisers. We were helping people raise thousands and thousands of dollars. My particular favorite was when over 400,000, or 2,000 people helped raise $400,000 for a widow and her 2 daughters whose husband, the widow's husband, had died in the Iraqi war, and it helped send the kids through college. Amazing story, and because they use You Caring, they saved over $20,000 in fees as compared to what other sites would have charged. So we were just so ecstatic at being able to help out this family, and many, many other stories like that. And about 18 months into the business, it was going so well that I quit my full-time job. Had been working in a computer company, quit my full-time job to work on You Caring and build my own business, and I was finally fulfilling my dream. That dream of owning my own business that was conceived with reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and starting the Christmas tree business. I was finally doing it, and it was amazing. It was so much fun. We were changing people's lives. We were helping people. We were doing something that was in my heart, and it was ticking almost every box of public success. We had created an amazing business. I believe we're actually changing the world through generosity, and we were, making a little bit of money on the side too, so that was great. But there was just one thing that was wrong. And about 8 months after I quit my job, I was getting a little bored with what I was doing. And what I had realized in the previous year or two is that not only did I love business, but I actually, even more than that, loved helping other people start their own businesses and fulfill their own dreams and do something they never thought they were capable of, create a product that would change the world like Tesla has. And You Caring was taking up so much of my time that I just wasn't able to put myself into that dream and that vision. So worse than bored, I was actually scared. I was really afraid. And I was afraid because, like Elizabeth Gilbert experienced in the TED Talk earlier on success, You Caring had been so successful that I didn't really believe I had what it took to start another business that would be so successful. And I was afraid that anything else I would do would be a letdown. So it took a lot of work and a lot of processing with my friends, but I ended up coming to the place where I said, you know what, I have to make a move. I have to do something. I can't just sit here and wrap exchange my value for personal success for this public success. I have to be pursuing this personal success. So through the encouragement of some of my friends, I ended up making the leap, and for the last 6 months, I've actually handed over the running of the business to my partner. He's doing an incredible job, Brock Ketcher, the guy who didn't want to answer my questions anymore. And he is running the company phenomenally, and I don't necessarily know what's next, but I'm starting to get a few clues. And to be honest, I'm really afraid. And I'm really afraid still with that fear that I won't do anything really significant again. But I'm far less, that fear is far less damaging than the fear of getting stuck inside something that just wasn't me. And I would much rather take the risk of never doing something so big and grandeur again than get stuck inside the success trap. So even though YouCaring had ticked almost every box for public success, I needed that motion toward who I was. So let me ask the question, how can you discover who you are? And I will give you 2 quick hints that have really helped me. One, the first, very similar to Elizabeth Gilbert's in her TED Talk, you have to find whatever it is in this life that you love more than you fear failing at, or than the thrill of success. So Christmas trees was an incredible experience for me because I discovered something in business that I loved business more than I was afraid of failing at it. And working with other entrepreneurs to help them create amazing businesses is something I love even more than the thrill of the public success of YouCaring. Secondly, you have to find your Christmas tree experience. And failure can be our best teachers. I know it was mine. And you have to find something that's bigger than you, that's bigger than you think you're capable of, and just jump headlong into it. Matthew did an incredible job organizing this TED event. Maybe he knew he was capable of it from the very beginning, but he took something that was bigger than him and he said, I'm going to face that. So find your Christmas tree experience. And that's personal success. So delving deep into who you are and having the courage to pursue what you find. And if along the way you do find yourself in the midst of amazing public success, congratulations. And at the same time, work even harder to come back into that place where you are in the midst of a discovery and motion toward who you are, because success can be an extremely disorienting experience. Thank you.